Hello and welcome to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grueling Truth, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, a new interactive app that lets you call what you think the offense or defense will do in a live NFL game and then see what others around the country pick as well. That's Gridiron Mo. Go to gridironmo.com. I am Evan Witalison, and tonight I am joined by Chef Troy. Troy, my co-host of the show, I call him Chef Troy. I'll let him explain why in a minute. But today we're coming to you talking about the NFC Divisional playoff game between the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals. The Packers were 35-18 winners against Washington this past Sunday, and it looked like the offense for Green Bay came back. It looks like they showed back up. Now, we'll see if, what happens against a better defense, because it was Washington who had a really bad defense. So we'll see what happens this week. But defensively, too, Green Bay played really good football against one of the hotter quarterbacks in all of football. I believe, if I recall right, Kirk Cousins had the highest completion percentage in the second half of the year. So now the Packers get to go up against the Arizona Cardinals, a rematch from the 38-8 debacle that Green Bay had. They allowed 17 points in the second quarter and 21 in the third quarter. 14 of those the defense scored. And overall, it was just not a good game for Green Bay in all aspects of the game. Rodgers got sacked 9 times, and the running game just really couldn't get going. But before we go more into the next meeting of the Packers and Arizona, throw it over to Chef Troy. How are you doing? How are you doing today?
Doing good. So for those listening in, the neat thing about what Evan and I do is we're not locked into a studio. We're not locked into the basement of some building where we have to sit with the microphone in our face, which would be okay. Don't get me wrong. If anybody's out there listening that has any affiliation with any radio station and you need 2 sports hosts and you need a new show, we're your guys. Hook us up. But the nice thing is, Evan, as I'm getting ready for the show, I had to cook dinner. My stepdaughter had dance, so my wife is out, so she wants dinner when she comes home, making a little bit of chicken salad, making a nice pork chop recipe in the slow cooker that I was doing before, some pork chops, cream of chicken, some ranch dressing in it. Very good. I recommend it. Very easy to make. So, yeah, I'm the chef tonight. I love to cook. And where else can you – I don't call this a job. I love doing it. If we got paid for it, it would be great. But where else can I talk Packer football, cook at the same time, and have a great night? So that's why I'm the chef tonight. But you hit things right on the head, Evan. We talked last week that somewhere along the line the Packers had to light the fuse. Now, they didn't get all the voltage back in the fuse by any means. They didn't play a perfect game. But offensively, they did some things which they should have. And it was nice to finally see the Packers do what they should have on paper against a lesser defense. So they did some good things there. You mentioned the defense. I've tipped my hats to the defense. I've praised Dom Capers now for the last 6-7 weeks. I know people have cried for Dom Capers to be gone at times, but without Dom Capers in that defense, we may not even be in the playoffs. They've kept us in many, many games. Now, it's going to be a tough test going back to Arizona, but it's also one of those things, Evan, when I look at it, the defense actually played bad against Arizona. The offense put them in very bad situations throughout the day. When you turn the ball over and you got to get right back on the field, that can be mentally, just tear you down mentally. I was talking to my stepson the other day, Evan, and I want to get your thoughts before we get into this game. I look at the one drive where I was critical of the defense, and that was the end of the second half. But the more I thought about it and the more I stepped back from my comment, being a coach, I always preach to my team the last 5 minutes of the half and the last 5 minutes of the game, most important time of a soccer game. You got to be mentally strong. But as I think about it, Evan, the offense was driving. And if I'm a defensive player, and I'm not making excuses by any means when I go down this road, the defense is getting excited. The offense is moving the ball. They're going to have a chance to score. They're going to put points on the board. They're going to go into halftime as poorly as they played. And I'm not saying that the defense kind of lapsed, but it's almost like they were expecting the offense to score, and that was going to be the half, and they didn't really expect to have to go out and stop a drive after a turnover. Again, I'm not saying that's any reason for a letdown. But mentally, all of a sudden, the emotions swung tremendously, and now they're thrown back on the field, and before you know it, the Cardinals are over midfield, and now they've gotten tightened up, and it's too late, and they go down and they score. So what are your thoughts there, Evan, about the game defensively that the Packers had played against the Cardinals? I thought they played pretty well, except for that one drive at the end of the half, which, again, I'm not making an excuse, but I'm saying that they're on the sideline getting all excited that the offense is going to score, they're going to go into halftime, regroup, come out, and it'll be a decent game in the second half. It's almost like they were caught off guard that they had to go back on the field and they had to stop a 2-minute drive because of that turnover. So what are your thoughts on the defense there?
Yeah, well, I think the defense started out playing pretty well in that game. They started out playing pretty well. They didn't give up a point in the first quarter, and like I said, overall they played pretty well. And you're basically nailing it right on the head. The Packers are driving for a touchdown to go into halftime, and then they turn the ball over. And I think that was one of the big turning points of the game, because it went from a 10-7 halftime score. Then the defense had to get back out, and Arizona marches down and scores quite quickly and quite easily to make it a 17-0 game. And on top of that, James Starks fumbles the ball right out of halftime, gives the ball back to Arizona, and Arizona scores in 2 plays in about 47 seconds to make it a 24-0 game. And like that, as they say, the route was on. After that Johnson touchdown to make it, the 24-0 game, Arizona didn't score another touchdown on offense. Now, yeah, I know they probably pulled the reins back a little bit, but the 14 remaining points Arizona scored were Packer fumble returns. Rodgers turned the ball over 3 times in that game. He fumbled a total of 3 times, lost 2, and he threw a red zone interception that was just a horrible throw. It was just poorly thrown football. And I guess that's a good segue into the game and what the Packers need to work on in this game against Arizona. And the big thing is they can't beat themselves. They cannot do stuff to beat themselves. The red zone interception shot themselves in the foot. Holding, it seemed like every big play Green Bay had, either running the ball or throwing the ball, it got called back for holding. They can't shoot themselves in the foot like that. Then you had the Rodgers fumbles. You had the quarterback between Rodgers and Tozine getting sacked 9 times. That can't happen on Saturday. If Rodgers gets sacked at 5, I'm going to say this, if Rodgers gets sacked 5 times, Packers aren't going to win, because that's the offensive line being leaky again. Now, good news for Green Bay, David Bakhtiari returned to practice today, although limited. He did return to practice today, and he is looking like he probably will be able to play, which that'll be huge. Got to remember, when these 2 teams met on that 30-8 debacle, Bakhtiari didn't play. Don Barclay played left tackle in that game, and then Walker had to come in for right tackle briefly before he got pulled for J.C. Tretter, who played pretty well at right tackle. Tretter last week played pretty well at left tackle against Washington. So now Bakhtiari's back. You insert Bakhtiari back into the lineup, and now you've got J.C. Tretter as an emergency tackle. If Bakhtiari re-aggravates the ankle or is ineffective, you can pull Bakhtiari quick and put Tretter there, because Tretter showed against Washington he can play that position much better than Barclay can. So that's going to be key too. Sam Shields returned to practice today. Limited. He's not out of the woods yet with the concussion protocol. but him being able to return to practice is huge. They didn't have Sam Shields in that game either the last time they played. So that's going to be a big deal, the fact that he's able to play. On the downside, it doesn't look like Devontae Adams will be able to play with that knee injury. It looked shortly after the game, he was pretty adamant that he would play and avoid serious injury, but it's looking like he sprained MCL, and he'll probably have to miss the game. But the big thing is, as I was getting at before I talked the injury report a little bit for Green Bay, they can't beat themselves, and that was the big issue they had the last time these two teams met. Turn the ball over too many times on offense and defense. Too many missed tackles. Johnson had a couple big, his 14-yard touchdown run had some missed tackles. He had a 44-yard catch. I think he had like 4 or 5 missed tackles on that one. They can't have those missed tackles. They can't. And I'm not saying, Arizona didn't win the game. Green Bay beat themselves. I'm not saying that, but Green Bay didn't help themselves. And that contributed to what became the embarrassment of the 38-8 game. Now, is Bakhtiari and Sam Shields and, those good enough to close that 30-point gap? Probably not, but if you take away some of the little things that Green Bay didn't do well in that game, like the penalties, like the turnovers, little things tend to build up the big things. Well, Green Bay didn't do the little things well in that game, and they built to 38-8. If they do all the little things right, that could close that gap, but that's going to be key. So when you look at this game, Troy, Bakhtiari possibly coming back, Shields possibly coming back. One of your thoughts on what I was saying is Green Bay just has to, and I said it when we previewed the game a few weeks ago when these two teams met, that Green Bay had to play a perfect game, and they couldn't beat themselves, and that's what they ended up doing. So how important is that to you in this matchup?
Yeah, they have to play a darn near perfect game again. Well, and they didn't. I say again because of what we said in the preview. There's no room for error. The Cardinals are just a good team top to bottom. We found out as fans that they can pressure the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers found out firsthand as he was smelling what the turf smelled like in Arizona. And the offensive linemen, they looked like kids playing against grown men. There was no time at all. How do you fix that? I mean, like you said, you got Bakhtiari coming back, and you have an offensive line that might have a little more depth. I mean, it got to the point, Evan, where I thought we were going to have to start throwing linebackers at offensive line in that game. And now that's no excuse because even before the injuries, they were getting manhandled. But the nice thing about football, Evan, is they only have to be better than the Cardinals for 60 minutes. On paper, this is one of those games where when I look at the front seven of the Cardinals versus the Packers' offensive line, I give the edge to the Cardinals. However, you played offensive line, Evan, and we both played sports. You only have to win your battle on Saturday. And you don't have to do it in a 3-game series or a 10-game series, but you have to come ready to play every game or every play. You have to have that emotional high every play. Now, they're not going to win every time. I see the Cardinals getting a few sacks in this game. But I also talked about Aaron Rodgers' internal clock. I think he reset it against Washington. Now, whether or not the past comes into play, which it can be a factor. But getting offensive linemen back, getting some depth at offensive line, having the confidence from last week, I saw a different Aaron Rodgers on the field than I'd seen in the past 5 weeks. And I think what it's done is, I'm not saying it's the Aaron Rodgers of old, but I'm thinking that he has gained maybe a little bit more confidence. So in order for them to win this game offensively, they cannot turn the ball over. You mentioned the red zone interception. To me, that's the play of the game. That's what turned the tide in that game. If they put any points on the board as poorly as they played in that first half, it still would have been a ball game. But after that interception, the dam opened and the water just ran wild. And the same thing can and will happen again if they turn the ball over. Our Arizona is very good at capitalizing on turnovers. And they capitalized on that red zone interception by marching the offense back out on the field, and they weren't passive. They were aggressive, and they went down and they scored. And that literally was the punch in the gut right there. It's like, you're going to turn the ball over? Boom, or here you go. That could have been a 14-point swing right there. I mean, if they kicked the field goal, you're talking not putting points on the board and giving up points before the half. And I think that was the punch in the gut. If we can erase that like you can in Photoshop and take that away, I think you have a totally different game in the second half. So as poorly as they played, Evan, I know people want to say, well, Arizona killed them. Well, they did on the scoreboard. But I want to look at the positives. As poorly as this Packer team played in that first half, Evan, they still kept the game close. And that's with penalties. That's with an offensive line getting their butts kicked. They were playing like crap anyway. They didn't deserve to win that game by any means. But as poorly as they played in that first half, it gives me hope for Saturday that if they go out and play mistake-free football and reduce the turnover or reduce the penalties, limit the penalties, I think they can hang in this game. So I'll turn it back over to you after that little ramble.
Yeah, well, with that, we do got to take our commercial break. We'll be back in about a minute. You've been listening to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grilling Truth, brought to you by Gridiron Mall.
This is former All-Pro Leon Searcy. I've got a new interactive app called Gridiron Mall, where you get to call the plays, offense or defense, and a live NFL game. You get to interact with other fans, pick the play, pick the call. That's Gridiron Mall.
Welcome back to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grilling Truth, brought to you by Gridiron Mall, a new interactive app that lets you call what you think the offense or defense will do in a live NFL game, and then see what others around the country pick as well. That's Gridiron Mall. Go to gridironmall.com. Once again, I am Evan Witallison, joined by Chef Troy, and just a quick reset to what we talked about the first part of the show is, first of all, Troy's in the middle of cooking dinner, hence the Chef Troy. Secondly, Packers-Arizona rematch. How can the Packers improve from being down 30 to 8, lose by 30 points? We touched base on not shooting themselves in the foot, not turning the ball over, not having so many penalties. And now let's talk about other ways for Green Bay to try to win this game. And we talked about not shooting themselves in the foot. The other one is they got to win first and second down. When you're in third and long situation against Arizona, that if you get in that situation third and long, that's when Arizona's going to tip their ears back and just go back and get you. Arizona overall doesn't have a great pass rush. They don't. That's why they blitz a lot. But if you get in the third and long situations, they're just going to pin their ears back and send the house at you. That's the type of defense they run. Green Bay needs to get into second and short, third and short. That's what they got to do. And I know third and short is the death blow, it seems like, to Green Bay, as they usually struggle up third downs, especially third and short. But I think that's going to be key. And one of the ways you do that is by being balanced. Lacey had 12 carries. Starks had 3 carries. And Crockett had 4 carries for -1. Packers got to run the ball. They got to find a way to run the ball, and they got to run it effectively. That's going to be one of the biggest keys. Run the ball effectively in this game. If they're able to run the ball pretty effectively, then that's going to open up the passing game a little bit. And secondly, the other thing they need to do is on defense, tackle. Tackle the guys. You're going to give up yards against this tough Arizona offense, but you got to tackle. You can't have the missed tackles that they had in round one of these two teams. You got to get them on the ground. You can't let them make big plays. 47-yard pass to Floyd, a 44-yard catch and run to Johnson, a 19-yard run from Williams, a 16-yard run from Ellington, a 14-yard run from Johnson. They can't allow those big plays, those big plays that pick up tons of yards in a hurry. They can't allow that. You look at the defensive game plan against Washington and against Minnesota, the first time, not the second time, the first time, that's the way the defense has to play. They got to get aggressive in that front seven and get constant pressure on Carson Palmer. I'm looking at the box score right now from the last meeting, and Green Bay sacked Carson Palmer. See if I can find it. They sacked him twice, which I would be okay with sacking Palmer twice if they got consistent pressure, but they didn't. They didn't get consistent pressure, and that's going to be key in this game. So, recap what I just said. They got to win on first and second down. They can't afford to be in second and third and long situations. The defense has to get pressure on Carson Palmer consistently, rattle him a little bit. Send safety blitzes, send corner blitzes if you have to. Just find ways to rattle them. And third, they got to get the running game established. They can't throw the ball, and I know part of it was the score, but they can't have a run-pass ratio like this game. Rodgers only threw the ball 28 times against Arizona, but he got sacked 9 times, and that's going to be key for Green Bay. They can't allow the 9 sacks. So it looked like we lost Troy for a minute, so we're going to while we wait for Troy to come back, I'm going to talk about, my prediction a little bit while I wait for Troy to have him talk about his keys. But when you look at this game, when you look at this matchup, on paper, Arizona should win. On paper. But the game's not played on paper. And the one thing I said after the last meeting between these two teams back in, I think it was week 16, the benefit of going into the playoffs is all you have to do is, as Green Bay, is be the better team on Saturday. Arizona on paper is at 14-2 is the better team. But all they have to do on Saturday is be the better team. I'm sorry, 13-3, but still, all they got to do is be the better team on Saturday. That's what matters ultimately. And I don't know what you caught of when I was talking about Troy or not, but basically my keys were win first and second down, run the football, get constant pressure on Carson Palmer. So what are your thoughts on keys to victory?
Yeah, I heard all that. I went to unmute myself and I hung up. So, yeah, every once in a while I pull one of those bonehead things. Not much more for me to add. I think you hit the points right on the head. I'll just kind of piggyback off what you said. Defensively, we talked about this a number of times. You got to win on first and second down, and that'll be a key against Arizona. Again, the defense I thought was put in some situations against Arizona from the offense, but at the end of the day, the defense, I don't think they need to play perfect, Evan, but they need to create turnovers. And the way you create turnovers is get Arizona into third and long. And it's common sense for any team that you play. You don't want to be giving up third and less than 4. And the defense will have to figure some things out. Again, I think that Dom Capers has done a marvelous job game planning against the majority of his opponents this year. The neat thing, Evan, is that the blowout loss a few weeks ago is in the past. And you can learn some more tendencies. I know you can by watching film, but now you've played them. You've been between the lines. You've noticed some things. And I'm not saying that both teams threw all their their cards on the table. But now you've had a chance to physically be between the lines and play the game. And I think that can help. And I don't look at that game a few weeks ago as an automatic, the Green Bay Packers are going to go to Arizona and get blown out again. I actually look at it from the standpoint where the Green Bay Packers can go, hey, it happened. We turned the ball over. We committed some penalties. We couldn't block. We couldn't tackle. We didn't get any pressure on Carson Palmer. These are things that can be fixed, Evan. Now, they can be. Now, the front seven, like you said, the way to slow down that good pass rush is don't be in third and long. And I was joking this morning with my stepson as I picked him up from work and brought him home. I sure hope that the Green Bay Packers offensively don't decide to come out, run the stretch play with Eddie Lacy on the first play, try to run the fade on the second play, and then third down they throw an incomplete pass over the middle. What I just told you is probably the same three plays that they've started most of the games with in the past 17 weeks. They've been, in my mind, Evan, pretty predictable. I'd like to see offensively, I've said this a number of times, they need to go up-tempo. They need to go up-tempo and keep moving. When they did it against Washington, I don't know why the Redskins tried to substitute, but a couple times Rodgers caught them. And it just seems like the whole offensive unit is more comfortable in an up-tempo style offense. When they got to take 30 seconds and huddle up and line up man for man, they seem to get beat. I'd love for them to come out in the first drive and run a 2-minute offense because they're going to have to score points against Arizona. As good as the defense is for the Green Bay Packers, I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. If the Green Bay Packers can protect Aaron Rodgers, not turn the ball over, and honestly, I've said it and I'm waiting for it, Evan, I want them to run up-tempo. They can do it. They've proven they can do it, and you can run the ball effectively in an up-tempo offense. I actually think you can run it better because you're keeping the defense on the field, no substitutions, you're keeping them off balance, and you can throw run plays in there. I'd love to see more of that in the offense because that seems when the Packers offense is clicking. And I don't know if it's because Mike McCarthy's too stubborn to let Aaron Rodgers take over the reins and call the plays on the fly, but he doesn't have to give up the play calling ability. He can call into the helmet. These are the next two plays I want you to run. Now do them fast. Get up to the line. Go do it. I'd love to see more of that. And I'm not talking about up-tempo where they get to the line and then take 35 seconds to snap the ball. I want to see the 2-minute offense where they think that every drive is a 2-minute drive. And it doesn't have to be for the whole game. But if you remember a few years back, Evan, the Packers did that on a number of times when they were putting up these astronomical point totals and they were getting over 30 points a game. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like 2 years ago where they would do that for a portion of every game. They would just go into the no huddle and run a 2-minute offense. And I think back, probably 9 times out of 10, they went down and scored either a touchdown or at least kicked a field goal. They need to do that again. They really do. That's my key to the game. Defensively, you had mentioned getting pressure. And I think Dom Capers, the old dog can dial up some different blitzes. They really didn't have to throw too many out in the last game just because of the situations they were put in. So I think Dom Capers is going to come up with a pretty decent game plan. So I'll turn it back over to you and we can give our predictions.
Yeah, well, before we give our predictions really quick, do you want to let people know a couple of NFL news that's hitting the wire while we're recording? Former Packer assistant, I believe quarterback coach Ben McAdoo will be named the head coach of the New York Giants. Joe Philbin looking like he's going to join his coaching staff. And it only took about a week, but Dick Coder is telling people, I guess, he will be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Hugh Jackson is the head coach of the Browns from earlier. But with that, looking at my prediction for the game, I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. Is Arizona the better team? On paper, yes. Arizona's the better team. They're, in my opinion, the most balanced team in the entire NFL this year, from top to bottom. But all Green Bay needs to do is be the better team on Saturday. That's what matters. Who's the better team on Saturday? And Green Bay did a lot to make me give me reasons why they should beat Arizona. They did give me reasons. And I think the reason why Green Bay wins is the fact that Carson Palmer has struggled in the playoffs. He's 0-2 in the playoffs. One of the games he did leave injured, but he's 0-2 in the playoffs, and his numbers are not very good. I think the playoff experience Green Bay has, I think is going to be the X factor. I think Green Bay goes in, and they get the victory, and I don't think it's going to be a huge shootout. I know that both offenses kind of warrant the big shootouts, but I think it's going to probably be in the 23-21 range, like I said, with the Green Bay victory. What are your thoughts on the outcome?
Well, if you had asked me yesterday, I probably would have had a little different answer. But again, every day I get to sit down and think about this, and there's some similarities, Evan, that I saw. If you think back to the Super Bowl run when they went to Philadelphia and they took care of business in a dominating fashion, I'm not saying that this Arizona Cardinal is that Philadelphia Eagle team when they went into Philadelphia. But I'm just looking at some similarities here between the past and the future. And I had mentioned I'm not taking into consideration the big blow a couple of weeks ago because I think as poorly as they played, they hung tough in the first half. That was enough right there, Evan, to give me hope if they beat the Redskins that they can go back to Arizona and hang with them. At the end of the day, they've got to protect football, and we've beat that to death, saying that that's what they had to do. I think Green Bay does protect the football. I think Aaron Rodgers, you had mentioned it on Monday, yesterday, for those that want to listen to that episode, will be posted a little bit later this evening on the redlightsportsnetwork.com. I think the Packers play turnover-free football, and I'm not saying they're going to turn the tables and blow Arizona out at home. That's not going to happen. But I had mentioned that I thought the Packers would take care of business against Redskins by 10 points. Evan, I think the same thing happens this week. I think Mason Crosby hits a field goal in the middle of the fourth quarter and extends it to a double-digit lead, and I think the Packers hold on to win. And I think the Packers put up 31 points on the Arizona Cardinals, and I think they win 31-21. That's my prediction.
So both of us predicting Packer victories. Hopefully the Packers do move on, so we don't have to do a Packer recap show next week when we record the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grueling Truth. Do you want to say thank you so much for those that are listening to the show? We greatly appreciate it. And until next week, hope you all have a safe and fun weekend, celebrating hopefully a Packer victory. So you've been listening to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grueling Truth. Good night, everybody.